Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Tactical Leader. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Chris Ryan, the CEO of Gobundance, and we are going to talk a little bit about his adventure mastermind that really brings a lot of different founders and philanthropists together. Before we begin, I'll remind you this show is brought to you by Nightly Productions. If you're a podcaster, YouTuber, or content creator, you want to create tactical content that delivers, head over to nightly.productions to find out how we can help you create that tactical content and help you deliver it. Again, that's nightly.productions. Chris, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, it's so good to be here. And first and foremost, I want to thank you and for that matter, your audience for allowing me to be here. As you know, I've done my research on you beforehand. I like the people that you've interviewed. I like the way that you ask questions, and you have a way of really honoring the people that are in your community as it relates to this podcast. And I appreciate that.
I appreciate the kind words, Chris, and I'm really excited about this because and I do want to give the audience just a little bit about you because you have just a fascinating journey that I'm really excited to unpack, and it really goes back from just really it looks like a career of extraordinary things, right? You kind of put together different aspects, connecting the world, connecting high performers that really want to get together in a couple different things in a couple different arenas where you have this mastermind group that is called Gobundance. It's a phenomenal thing. We're definitely going to unpack that very heavily, where it's really a peer-to-peer mastermind organization. It focuses on leading sophisticated groups, investors, philanthropists, intellectuals. You do all sorts of things like get together, that the peer-to-peer support, be going on great adventure trips, do all sorts of amazing different aspects. We're definitely going to unpack that. But you're also the founding member of R360, which is essentially an invitation-only league of extraordinary individuals, leaders who've attained net worth of over 100 million, and they desire to use their abilities, wealth, and knowledge to leave an enduring legacy. And from when we've talked previously, you're really focused on that legacy piece. You're really focused on how do we make an impact with all the amazing works we do in this world, which we love talking about on this show. So I'm really excited to unpack those things. But before we really dive into your journey to get where you are today, just tell the audience, what's a fun fact about yourself that we might not know already?
So, fun fact about me is when I was younger, I was a competitive tennis player. And in the boys 12 Eastern Tennis Association second round at Port Washington, I had the privilege of playing Patrick McEnroe, and he absolutely pummeled me. He beat me 6-0, 6-1. And I was gifted, thanks to his mother being on the sideline and giving her son a signal, I was gifted a game in the second set. So the fun fact is I have won a tennis game off of a McEnroe.
Hey, that's pretty darn impressive right there, man. And I know you have a really interesting journey that kind of started in that athletic arena. And we talked about it a little bit with your experience in college, and you did a little bit of work with the West Point guys up in that arena. You went to a military university up in New York. So you have a kind of an interesting beginning to really what has been a phenomenal career. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you kind of began in that leadership world and that teamwork world, a little bit more about your earlier days as you started delving into what leadership was going to look like for you?
So thank you. It's a good question. So growing up, there were three main focuses in my life. It was academic with my school and my studies. It was athletic with being a young junior tennis player, and it was in the church. And so my parents were very regimented and disciplined in making sure that pretty much daily I got a dose of at least all three of those things. And so growing up, the structure and the intensity and the focus were all skills that were nurtured into me that have allowed me in no small way to accomplish what I've accomplished in my life. And I didn't actually go to a military university. I went to a military high school. It was the New York Military Academy. That was a feeder school for a lot of the kids, especially those coming from foreign countries, to feed into West Point. And as I think I shared with you when we visited on the pre-call, one of the great gifts of my life is that the folks at West Point allowed me to work out with their tennis team while I was a junior and senior in high school. And honestly, I think a fair amount of their leadership traits and tactics showed up on the tennis court, and I picked it up, and it has served me ever since.
And I know tennis, I mean, it may sound or seem at its surface like an individual sport, but in reality, there's a lot of teamwork that goes into it. There's a lot that goes, especially performing at that type of level. And it looks like you started leveraging that into your business experience and into different organizations you've been a part of overall, where it seems like the underpinning theme of what you do professionally is networking and matchmaking, really connecting dots for a lot of people. Can you dive into what kind of drove that motivator for you?
Yeah, so another good question. Thanks, Zach. So my purpose in life is pretty clear. I am here to help other people move the needle of significance in their life. I was lucky enough to stumble across a gentleman who spoke to a group of about 200 of us in 1996 by the name of Bob Buford. He's the author of the book Halftime, which some of your viewers and listeners may know. And the book Halftime is all about man's transition from success to significance. Long and short of it is I became a disciple of Bob's for about 4.5 years. And in that time, he taught me how to look at the world, not from the context of the traditional monetary, materialistic success criterion and judgment, but really more for what can we give back? How can we build families of character and values and morals and ethics? How can we leave a legacy that we could all be proud of? And as I shared with you before, one of the ways that I have seen this encapsulated brilliantly is with a 5-minute and 2-second video that a gentleman named David Brooks has on TED and YouTube. And the title of the TED Talk is called, "Are You Living for Your Resume or Your Eulogy?" And what I have learned and have suffered from absolutely myself is a lot of us live for our resume. Yet, when we come towards the end of our days, we all want to be remembered for those eulogy virtues and values that we have. And I have found a calling and a real vocation in helping people transition from that success to significance, especially in the ultra high net wealth space. And I find that it's probably some of the most fulfilling, satisfying, joyful, and satiating work that I've ever done in my career.
And I love that that's where your passion goes, because I think a lot of people, and we talk about legacy a lot in this show, and a lot of people as they start, we talked about Simon Sinek's book Start With Why. There's a piece of where people are conceptualizing now. That's becoming more of a hot topic thing, right? Get your passion behind what you're going to do. But a big piece of that turns into, if you can envision the end goal, if you can envision the legacy you want to leave on the world, you start shifting that why maybe a little bit into a bigger spectrum, right? Your why, cool, I started here, but where do I want to end up? And you start creating a bigger vision. And I imagine a lot of the people you work with have this really, really large vision or have accomplished a pretty big vision. And now they're even moving farther into that legacy world. Can you talk a little bit on that with some of the people you work with? That are these ultra successful folks that just are in that stage of where they're really trying to craft this amazing legacy they're leaving?
So what's interesting, and I so applaud the founders of GoBundance when they started it back in the day. They realized young that legacy and purpose and creating a world greater than themselves was super important to all of them. And so they have 6 pillars, from authentic relationships to extreme accountability to age-defying health to epic adventures to horizontal income. What they look to do is they look to capitalize across all of the different forms of capital to ultimately not just benefit you as a businessman or as an investor, but rather as a parent, as a spouse, as a son, daughter, brother, sister. You know, we're all community leaders in one way, shape, or form or fashion. And as you and I have discussed, who cares how many ones and zeros in the bank account if your relationships are suffering or if your health is suffering? You know, my 20-year-old daughter could care less what my business successes look like. She wants to know that when she needs me, I'm there, that I love her, she loves me. And so it focuses on the things that in later in life, people will get to. Right? David Brooks also is the author of the book Second Mountain. He talks about the second mountain that happens later in life. You know, we talk about the value of compounding interest in investments and in monies that we hold on today. Let's talk about the compounding interest in return on relationships or return on health or return on being a good parent What's that worth for you? And a lot of us get so focused, myself included, on the here and the now, that sometimes it comes at the cost of what's going to be really important to us later in life. Perfect example. Try not caring about your health. I promise you there will come a day when that paradigm will shift. Of course, of course. So, simple question, what are you doing to invest in your health today in terms of sleep, diet, exercise, alcohol consumption, smoking, whatever the case may be? And everybody pays a cost later in life. We want to make you aware of, we want to make you able to address, and we want to make you in a position to resolve some of those future train wrecks now, not later.
And I imagine the folks you work with, and we're talking just to give it a conceptualization, if somebody hasn't heard of GoBundance, the people that are a part of your tribe overall, these are millionaires, people that have worked for years. I mean, they've done the quote unquote grind that a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, people out there, we've been in that grind. And these are people that are now looking to recognize that quote unquote work-life balance, that amazing thing that nobody actually can understand, right? Is this something that you hear a lot about?
Yeah, you're dead wrong, but you're a really kind guy for saying that. So I so appreciate the setup, but I gotta burst both of our bubble on this. So here's the truth. None of us have this figured out. None of us is Obi-Wan Kenobi in this space. And anybody who says that they are, respectfully, is full of shit. So we're all struggling in this thing called life. We all have our bag of rocks that we carry with our regrets, our mistakes, our challenges, our obstacles, our vices, whatever the case may be. Everybody has it, brother. You do, I do. And anyone who says their life is perfect, man, best of luck to them, because that's total BS. And with GoBundance, it's not that these are older gentlemen. These guys may be successful in their 20s, 30s. Average age is probably late 30s, early 40s. And maybe they've made a killing in crypto. Maybe they're crushing it in real estate. Maybe they've done really well in cannabis. All of that's fantastic. Congratulations, you're successful. Now what, right? And if you're successful, but you don't have any friends, if you're successful, but you're pre-diabetic at 27 years old, if you're successful, but you've decided that you're not going to talk to your kids for the next 45 years. What are you doing, man? What's the purpose of this? And so what we try to do, it's not work-life balance, because I think that's a fantasy land concept. What we do is we allow ourselves and each other to be accountable to working on the stuff that matters. And we have this term called carefrontational, where you and I are in a room and we're talking and I see a blind spot. Brother, your waist is getting big. Your butt's starting to get fat. I mean, come on, man. You're way too in shape. You got to get it together. And I'm not saying it because I'm judgmental. I'm not saying it because I'm angry. I'm saying it because I care about you. But what are you going to do about it, Butterball? Right? So, or Chris, you're working super hard, but your girlfriend's mad at you, your daughter's mad at you, you don't see your nieces and your nephews. What are you doing? And so by holding each other extremely accountable, my hope is that we help all of us be better souls, beings, creatures on this rock for the 80, 90, 100 years that we have left.
And I think that can be applied in so many different directions, because it's a trend among human beings. We get so dedicated to what we are, quote unquote, what we do, turning into what we are, the identity piece, right? We identify as what we do in so many different circles. And in the military is that way. When I was a police officer, is that way you identify as a uniform. Then you switch into business ownership and it turns into, I am this company, or I am this person, right? That's how you build your identity. And it's never really who you are as that human person, that human capital that kind of delves into it. So you forget about how important that stuff can be. You forget about the spouse, the kids, the soccer game that needs to happen and you need to be there for, the birthdays. Like, can't tell you how many of those we've missed. Is there something that you would recommend to that person, especially in the early days of grinding, where they can set a boundary there, or start creating something in their mind where, like, this is how I'm going to do my best to balance this and maintain objectivity on these relationships and health and these aspects we need outside of the business world?
Yeah. So it's an easy sentence, but it's a hard start. It starts with surrounding yourself with people whose agenda is to help you be your best, and reciprocally, your agenda is to help them be their best. So this is the genesis for a lot of different mastermind groups. And I believe that with Gobundance in particular, we've kind of cracked the code. We now have over 700 men, about 115 or so women, and more than the size of their wallet, more than their net worth. This is an alignment on character and values. Everyone in Gobundance is relational. Everybody in Gobundance is a giver first, a receiver second. No one's really a taker. We're all insatiably curious. We're life learners. We're open and willing to engage with new ideas and new concepts. Nobody, when we all come together in a host of different ways, conferences, trips, vacations, local meetups, social activities, you name it, everybody is warm, friendly, open, and engaging, because you never know where that new best friend, best resource, best piece of advice is coming from. And not at all to sound sexist with my next statement, but as men, we do not do a good job of making real, authentic, meaningful relationships, especially after about 30, that aren't tied to something. Work friends, they're school friends, or they're friends of the kids, and so they're couple friends. You know, the gift of Gobundance is that everyone comes here with no selfish agenda other than they want to better themselves, and through themselves, their families and the communities they have, and they want to make sure that you're along for the ride as well. And if we can create this community, everyone can honor that ethos that I just mentioned. My suspicion is all waters rise, and we all walk away better human beings on this planet.
And I love that aspect of it. And we talked about it previously. I run a small mastermind here in Atlanta that's very geocentric based. And it's amazing to watch interactions with people that have never been in business, have no clue what the concept of a mastermind even is, how that growth starts. And a big piece of mine is business focus, right? How do we build business? Literally called business builders. So it's focused on building businesses, right?
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
Gobundance, there's a little bit of a different spin on that. It's about building that abundance in life, right? And it's a very active community. Very like-minded individuals in that side, right? What you said one thing just a moment ago that kind of struck my interest, and I'd love for you to speak on this because I think it kind of encapsulates like your passion behind Gobundance. You said it's a group of people that are insatiably curious, essentially lifelong learners, where you're always trying to find something new to maybe challenge yourself. Maybe you're stagnant in life, and like Gobundance is a perfect place for you to challenge yourself in a totally different capacity. Can you talk a little bit on more on that insatiably curious piece, that lifetime learning, and how you captivate that with Gobundance?
Yeah, at the risk of being over dramatic with my next statement, if you're not learning, if you're not growing, you're probably dying, right? And so none of us have all the answers. Heck, most of us don't even know the right questions to ask, starting with myself. So if we think we're done, we're probably right, but not in a healthy, good way. So all of us, can focus on the lifelong journey of being a great parent. All of us can focus on the lifelong journey of being a great friend, or a great son, or a great brother, or a great church leader, or a political leader, whatever the passions are. I can always be a better tennis player. Just ask my girlfriend. My point in saying this stuff is that if we're not focusing on stretching ourselves, at times it can be uncomfortable. That's okay. You don't need me to tell you, because everyone on this call has heard 100 times before, get comfortable being uncomfortable. But get comfortable being uncomfortable surrounded by people who strive for your betterment and call you on it. Uncomfortableness for uncomfortableness sake doesn't work. I can jump in an ice cold pool tomorrow, and boy, it'll be super uncomfortable. But unless I build a habit around that, unless I have some structure and some goals, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to, use it for anti-aging. I'm trying to use it to shock my system. I'm trying to use it to speed up my metabolism. Unless we unpack why we do what we do and are deliberate about it, it's easy to have a default setting in life. My suspicion is, based on the conversations I've had with you and through you, your audience that you serve, my suspicion is everyone who listens to you wants to be better in life in however they define better. Maybe it's in business, fine. Maybe it's with their relationships. Maybe it's with their health. Maybe it's with their parenthood. Maybe it's with their, religious organizations. All of that's fantastic. GoBundance, at the end of the day, if there's one tagline that we've never used before that I'll share, is we're here to help make all of us better. And the gift of GoBundance is, even though it may be a men's organization or a women's organization, we have both. If our membership, if you were to poll our membership, I think they would tell you that not only have they benefited from GoBundance, but their spouses have benefited from GoBundance, and their kids. And with all due respect, we talked about you're the godfather, you're the godchild, I believe you said it's 5 years old. Look, if you and I were to have a great conversation and something came out of this that benefited you, maybe it's a piece of investment advice, maybe it's a workout routine, whatever the case may be, that's great, Zach, and so happy to do it for you. But if I told you something that you could then take back that would benefit the trajectory and the value and the love and the enjoyment and the success of your godchild, brother, that's like a mic drop moment, MasterCard time, right? So we strive to not only benefit our members, but to benefit the people that are most important to them, starting with their families.
And I love how you encapsulated that, because the tertiary effect that I'm gathering from this aspect, and I've seen it. We talked a little bit about my military service, coming back from the military. And I see this a lot in the veteran world, but you see it a lot in the corporate world, the entrepreneurship world, as people are transitioning. The focus stays on, how do we make money? How do we build this business? How do we climb the success ladder, right? And something you just said about me, if I get better, if I get a better workout routine, if I do something that improves myself, what I recognized in that transition piece was the person I came back from in Afghanistan, the person I came back as, was very different than the person that left for Afghanistan, right? And there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of guilt. There were different things that like kind of came out that a lot of veterans deal with, a lot of business owners deal with. The stressors come home, right? And what we're talking about with GoBundance is so fascinating to me, because when you start bettering that, you start bettering the mentality, you start getting more help in that world. You have that peer-to-peer support of like, man, I'm a high net worth individual. I'm really struggling with this. I can't seem to make my girlfriend, my wife happy. My kids are always complaining about not seeing me enough. That all feeds it back into that relationship. So you almost, and this is what I ended up doing, you almost run away from that relationship. You go back into work. There's a reason I own 6 businesses. It's not because I love opening a business. It's because I dove into that and I buried myself there. There was no balance. There was no thought toward, what can we do to actually enjoy life? It's like, let me go build success, and then I'll worry about life later. And life catches up very, very quickly to you in the business world, in the military world. And I think a big piece of it for me was the intentionality behind my actions. Why was I building a business? Why did I want legacy? Why did I want to join a community like GoBundance? And the intentionality behind it, I love what you said, is you're in a group of people that are in the world of discomfort. They're all uncomfortable. We're all in a different space, but you can relate in a totally different way where, yeah, we can relate on business, but GoBundance allows you to do it on a personal side. Let's go have fun. Let's go enjoy and build ourselves up in a different capacity than just focusing on burying ourselves in business all the time. But I think it's true that the intentionality behind the action that kind of shapes why, and GoBundance isn't a just dive in thing. There's a membership, there's an application, like you're crafting a culture within this mastermind, which is so key, of people that have the intentionality of being uncomfortable, but also growing personally, spiritually, so on and so forth. Is that I went on a little bit of rant there because I love the mission behind it all, but it seems like that's what the community is all about.
Perfect. So as an example, permission to get you a little uncomfortable.
Of course.
So you've lived a hard life in so much as your military work. We talked a little bit about this, and I said this yesterday, I'll say it again today. I am a huge supporter of a number of veteran initiatives. I believe our veterans are an exceptional class of individuals in our community. Not only do I thank you for your service, but I thank every and all veterans that will be able to hear this message. So first of all, what you've done is incredibly beneficial to all of us. Having said that, it came at a cost. So you talk about wearing the uniforms. You think when you took off your police uniform, you stopped being a police officer?
Not one day.
When you came back from Afghanistan, did the war come back with you? Yes. Yes.
100%.
But none of that is who you are. There's you, and then there's all the stuff that life puts on top of you. And from my limited experience of you, you are relational, you are warm, you are kind, you are loving, you are giving, you're super smart, you're super successful. All of that can get dampened by situations, adversities, challenges. I had a lot of counseling when I was a kid because I was dealing with some abandonment, some rage, some self-loathing, some pretty heavy stuff for a 15, 16, 17, and 18. And I also come from a family of alcoholism. And so I knew my path. My path was I was going to be no different than my father. And I'd probably wind up beating the living shit out of my kids, just like I had done to me as a child. But I wanted to break through that. And I am not my hurts. I am not my suffering. I am not my pain. I am not my losses. I am not my adversity. I'm something very different. But sometimes those quilts and those uniforms that you wear, they get too heavy for you to be able to throw off yourself. And so one of the gifts of Gobundance is we talk about what's most important. Yes, maybe it's an investment opportunity. Yes, maybe it's a wealth management strategy. Yes, maybe it be a tax mitigation. We cover all that stuff, but that's not the stuff that ultimately moves the needle most in your life. Because if I were just to ask you, what are your top 3 issues? My suspicion is the dollars and the cents isn't driving. If you're up at 3 o'clock in the morning, I call it the night of the rat or the hour of the rat. It's something's going on in your brain. I promise you, your latest investment deal is not what's gnawing at your brain at 3 o'clock in the morning. We help you address that, and we do it in an environment of trust, respect, acceptance, confidentiality, and we move the needle in the lives of these men and women and their families. And brother, I am the luckiest guy in the world to be doing this full time, getting paid for it, and having a blast.
And I love that aspect of it, because I think that's something that it took me a lot of work. It took me therapy. It took me accountability, friends and for the longest time, and I had a chip on my shoulder. And this is all speaking from personal experience. And I hope it's relatable to those listening. But at the end of the day, like, I had a chip on my shoulder about everybody keeps saying I'm different coming back, and they expect me to be the same guy. There was not acceptance of who I had turned into or who I changed into. Different life perspective completely, right? Like, everything changed. Time value itself changed dramatically. And I think that's the big thing of perspective that was a shift for me, is the time value. Things that keep me up are time oriented, right? I don't have enough time to do this. I don't have enough time to live life. I don't have enough time to check out, quote unquote, and go on a trip with GoBundance. Something like, those are the limiters that a lot of people fight with, right? And I want to kind of tie a bow on that piece of it, because I want everybody to understand how important that truly is when we're not talking work-life balance. We're talking about I call it a mindset reset. Once a quarter, I'll go up to the mountains with myself, my journal, and my dog. Mindset reset. GoBundance kind of drives that forward, where we're putting the importance on the self-awareness of where your mindset is, having the accountability of mindset, driving beyond, do a little business. Hell yeah, we're a bunch of high net worth individuals. That's fun. But at the end of the day, like, you're a human being, you have a mentality that could need polishing, could need help, could just need a shoulder to cry on at the end of the day. And GoBundance, I think, from everything we've explained, provides that capability with people that are in a like-minded situation overall.
Yeah, it absolutely does. That's the gift of this organization, because we focus on what is most important to you. One of my good friends, Justin Donald, talked about he doesn't want to be rich, even though he's incredibly wealthy. He wants to have the freedom to do whatever he wants to, whenever he wants to. He's not buying dollars and cents. He's buying hours and minutes and days and weeks and years for his family, for his wife, for his daughter. And it's a great paradigm shift, because having more for more's sake does nothing. Having more so that you can use those resources to make decisions that best serve you and your family, that's everything. That's everything. So, I want to make sure that every quarter you get to take that little, Fortress of Solitude retreat, Superman, and go do your dance with your dog. Perfect. And think of the cost mentally, emotionally, spiritually, intellectually, if you don't do that. Because I promise you, today, tomorrow, and the next day, we'll all show up. We're not stopping the clock. So our choice then is, how do we set up and organize our life in such a way to make the most out of the time that we do have? And GoBundance brings that awareness to a much earlier level than when most people catch on. Because in your 60s and 70s, you'll come to realize this for sure. Most people do. How interesting, and how can we change the trajectory of your life and your family's life if we catch it now?
I love that. It's really, truly a very deep conversation, deep aspect about life that people don't want to talk about. People don't want to talk about the true vulnerability of like the fallout. And, I can talk about Afghanistan missions all day, but that's not what impacts me today as much as the fallout of how I handled it, how I didn't handle it well, right? The
Sure.
compartmentalization that didn't get uncompartmentalized because I isolated myself. I didn't find a group like this. I didn't find people that could quote unquote understand me. That's the huge piece. A lot of people just want to be understood, and it's very difficult to find a group of people that understand you because it's hard to find like-minded individuals. And I feel like
That's well
GoBundance
said.
is a
Yeah.
very good aspect of that. Net worth is there, the wealthy individuals that are having fun, they're being fit, they're doing different things, they're getting out of their comfort zone and bonding. And it's just such a great piece of what is missing in a lot of business owners and very successful people's world. And if we can start that on the early, like you just said, if you start that on the early side, I'm in my early 30s. If I gain this awareness now, how much better are my 40s and 50s going to be as I get
Yeah.
that balance in my mind?
Yeah. And this has been a heavy chat, and I wasn't necessarily expecting this, but I'm grateful that we did it. Right alongside everything that we just said, GoBundance is an insane amount of fun. So one of the things that we focus on are epic adventures. So we take guys into the desert and camp there and do some glamping. We're taking a group to Croatia. I do an annual trip to Necker Island in the BVI's. It's Richard Branson's place. We have a Spartan team that we've just created. So we got a ton of guys that you would expect at that age that are big into Ironman, Tough Mudders, super triathletes. By the way, everyone's also a type A heat-seeking missile, of course. And so we have a Spartan team. So, Dallas, San Diego, New York City, and I forget the fourth. We're doing Spartan races. We're getting 40 of us together, all climbing mountains and doing all kinds of cool stuff. And so it's not just about the work, and it's not just about the self-development. It's also about having fun and fellowshipping and creating community with people that matter. And what's great is it's not an isolated event, in so much as we not only have the Go Wives programs, the men's program and the women's program, we also have a Go Couples program. So how interesting, right? So think about these guys that have been very successful. They're isolated. Their wealth, their success isolates them. It isolates their wife as well. Imagine if one couple could get with 24 couples that are all in the exact same boat that they are, and go to Tuscany in the Italian wine country together, or go to I'm trying to think of some of the stuff that we have going on here in the States. Go on one of our couples retreats. We also have a program called Fambundance, which is all about celebrating your children. Respectfully, you guys are just props for all intents and purposes, and the focus is really on helping these young and small men and women, boys and girls, develop themselves, find their voice, build their confidence. Imagine having a son or a daughter come back and say, "Mom and Dad, we need to have a family meeting because I got some things we need to talk about." Right? Right? Imagine how that could change the dynamics of the family conversation. So we truly embrace the member, but as if not more importantly, we embrace the family, and we build programming and activities and retreats and conferences and trips and experiences that celebrate the entire family, consistent with the pillars and the ethos of what we have in GoBundance.
It's truly an incredible mission, a vision that y'all are accomplishing. And we've talked a lot about legacy, but I've asked every single one of my guests this question. And I'm really curious to hear your answer, Chris, attached to this, with all the amazing things you've put into the world, all the things you're doing to now pay it forward for the lessons you've learned, and get people together that do have this balance. What is the legacy that you're wanting to leave on the world with all the amazing things, with GoBundance, all the hard driving you're doing? What's that legacy look like for you?
So a few answers to that question. So the first answer to that question is that's a tough question to ask only because it forces everyone to look at their mortality. And I used to run an organization in Texas, in Dallas and Austin specifically, called Tiger 21. And starting in about 2015, 2016, one of the exercises that I had some, not all, but some of the members do, is I made them write their own eulogy. And there is nothing that is more humbling than you reading your eulogy in a room of 15 people. Maybe your spouse is there, maybe your children are there, and see how they react. Because we all talk about these fantastic eulogy values, but in the day-to-day grind of what we all go through, sometimes we forget. You read your eulogy, you don't forget. You write your eulogy, you don't forget. So I wrote my eulogy probably 8 or 9 years ago, and I update it periodically. Here it is. I want to create change in this world by helping people find their significance. I want to be remembered as someone who has loved deeply and has been loved. I want to be remembered as someone who created value for everyone he touched, and from princes to paupers. It mattered not what socioeconomic, what education, what race, what creed, sexual orientation, religious orientation, none of that matters. We're all here, hopefully, to leave a mark in this world and make it a better place. Steve Jobs, as I'm sure many of your audience knows, talked about making a dent in the universe. I want to uplift and exalt the souls of people to be better, and in doing so, better the world.
I mean, it's a huge legacy, and you're so far on your way of doing that and connecting people and doing so much amazing work that way, Chris. And I want to give the audience an opportunity.
Thank you.
Obviously, we're going to talk more about GoBundance as a whole. We're going to get tactical about it during Tactical Fridays episode. So definitely come back this Friday for that piece as we really dive into the value of GoBundance and the activities we do within GoBundance. But I want to give the opportunity to the audience to connect with you prior to that. If they hear this episode and they want to reach out to you, if they want to learn more about you, more about GoBundance, what's the best way for them to reach out and connect with you?
I'm a pretty accessible guy. My email address is chris.ryan@gobundance.com. CHRIS.RYAN @GOBUNDANCE.com. By all means, send me an email. I'm pretty good at responding to my stuff. Probably not too dissimilar to you. I'm an early morning guy, so I'm usually up around 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. And I find, as I suspect you do too, that some of the most productive time for me is when the phone is not ringing, the emails aren't popping in, and I just have time to think. I also do a thing called the gratitude prayer in the morning and at night. I think it's 3 things I'm grateful for in the morning. One of the things I will say that I'm grateful for before I put my head down on the pillow tonight is this call, because it has been unbelievably motivating for me. And you ask great questions, and I like your method of kind of framing and then asking a lot. I think you're really smart, and that's kind of where I am. So I'm happy to take email. I'll do my best to respond to anything that your listeners want to know. And here's the other offer that I hopefully will come across sincerely. Regardless of your interest in GoBundance or not, my mission is to kind of help and connect people. And one of my skills is my network. So if there's anything I can do outside of GoBundance that would be of value to you or to your audience, I'll do my best.
I love it, Chris. You're the man. Thank you for that amazing offer. I really encourage everybody reach out to Chris. Obviously, just connecting people is a superpower for you, and I definitely encourage everybody to take advantage of that. And of course, tune back in this Friday, Tactical Friday. We're going to dive a little bit more to GoBundance. Chris, thank you so much for your time, my friend.
Outstanding. God bless everybody. Thank you all.